I will not address the issues of risk from the perspective of possible management and control policies, nor as an object of sustainability studies, nor from the perspective of risk in communication. In other words, I will not discuss about risk in the areas in which is the most commonly associated: environment, health, economy, and crime. I'm talking about the risk of exclusion and discrimination in the city, which often generate marginalization, stigmatization, and conflicts. One of the themes currently most present, not only in the academic debate on the urban, but above all in the planning and governance activities of public decision makers, is the city on the future, mega, global, or ordinary cities. With reference to Sustainable Development Goals of European Union Agenda to 2030, the urban planning for the future must imagine and implement a future for the city in the short term, 2030, 2050 at the most, which takes into account some major challenges: the ecological transition, which has become an urgent necessity, the mobility, which includes migratory flows, and finally the inclusion of differences, which manifest all their potential in the cities. The current context, which is increasingly marked by uncertainty, as a pandemic has violently shown, has long been a field of observation for scholars such as Zygmunt Bauman, who has highlighted its contradiction. One of the most relevant aspects of this condition, in that the uncertainty, the fragility that affects the human base and thing, cannot be effectively addressed by the urban planning if it is not included in a common narrative, a common imaginary capable of producing a sense of belonging, able to include differences in a city that becomes a common good. This requires that the users of the city, its inhabitants, the people who work there and who visit it, identify themselves with this common good, take care of it, and love it. This identification is based on the feeling that this common good belongs to everyone and that is territory of common belonging. In French, there is a very nice and very effective expression, à l'aise, être à l'aise, se sentir à l'aise, which can be translated as to feel it at ease, to feel good, but also to feel free, not constrained, not stressed, and at the same time welcomed in a place, in a situation, even if it is completely new or unknown. This expression, which I love very much, expresses well the concept of inclusion, that is, to be welcomed and appreciated with our differences and for our differences. This sense of belonging does not develop automatically. The city can exist, without doubt, in the image that each person has of it. However, this image, this representation, is only justified insofar as the city responds to it with its openness. It offers opportunities for inclusion, such as work, security, social support. This practice of urban life can transform the users into a person who appreciates what the city offers. However, in order to generate a sense of belonging, of a commitment to the city, it is not enough to be a user. There must be a symbolic offer of belongings, a narrative which allows each person to identify themselves with the place. In other words, to find their own place in the city. Studying the theme of inclusion and in complementary way the theme of the open city is an urgent task that cannot be carried out by a single discipline. It is an interdisciplinary work that can only be successful with the synergy work of several disciplines. An objective that was also formulated by the theme of Venice Biennale. How will we live together? The presentation reads, we need a new spatial contract in the connect of widening political divides and growing economic inequalities. We call on architects to imagine spaces in which can generously live together. From our research perspective, research that I and Sandro make together, a possible new form of spatial contract are urban rituals of territorial inclusion. This is the issue of the research done with Sandro and Bob White, anthropologists at the University of Montreal, on the cities of Montreal, Geneva, and Turin. But also the topics of the project UNIC, unexpected inclusions, migration, mobility, and open city, a lead agency project of University of Geneva and the University of Liège on 7 European cities: Brussels, Charleroi, Liège, Geneva, Zurich, Chiasso, and Turin. Our hypothesis is as follows. In order to create civic engagement, commitment, and attitude of care towards the city, we need to love it and feel ourselves to be part of the territory that it is. We need rituals of territorial inclusion. Not only are they effective, but they also are fundamental importance to offer them continuity in order to respond to city, which is continually changes through its demographic dynamics. It is an offer, in other words, which must to be renewed in such a way as to reassure those who already live there, but also those who arrive in the city. What is the purpose of this ritual? How do they present themselves in our cities? What are the major strengths and weaknesses of existing rituals? What would be an ideal policy for territorial inclusion of a city? These are the questions which we have addressed with regard to a practice which is known in the city, namely rituals, festival, but which is little studied in general, and even less in its crucial importance for the reproduction of the urban good. To analyze deeply the framework of ritual of territorial inclusion, we have to consider that the cities of differences have a double discourse about their own representation. On the one hand, and particularly following the work of Richard Florida, diversity of lifestyles is seen as an engine of economic growth. On the other hand, and when it comes to migration, diversity is seen as a problem that must be addressed through policies called migrant integration. What are the challenges and the context of this double representation? First, the liquid society and the end of a strong institution, Bauman. Second, the end of the nation state as unity of analysis, Beck. And third, the era of mobility and the end of the analysis of sedentary as normally, John Henry. And there is also the political question on coexistence of populism, nationalism, closure, and a pluralist society. Human mobility challenges the way we think about living together. Everyday practices based on values and traditions need to be reviewed and designed to allow to the inclusion of newcomers and the established population. Otherwise, exchange, cooperation, and interaction are impossible, and oppression, marginalization, resentment, and exclusion are inevitable consequences. The imposition of assimilation regime is a form of oppression, while the construction of closed communities by newcomers leads to ghettos and poverty. The third way between oppression and ghettoization, the focus of our research, is a respectful inclusionary practice aimed at contributing to exchange, cooperation, and interaction between established and newcomers. The consequence of the analysis of human mobility in the urban context are, if you want, very simple. Informalization of living environments, fragile groups, and fragile institutions. Breakdown of homogenization logics and the management of the society of differences. Difference and creativity, mainstreaming diversity, super diverse city. And multiple logic of belonging and citizenship. Multiple citizenship and diversified belonging. Based on this framework, what are the characteristics of urban rituals of territorial inclusion? What emerged from our fieldwork? First of all, the element of ritual. The ritual has a beginning and an end for, as a form. Performance and body is involved. Is a performance included the body, liminality, liminoid realm, and sometimes ecstasy. Ritual mobilized the social representation of personal, collective, and social memory and identity. And ritual had a presence of offices and objects. Ritual are also creativity, emphasize differences, and openness is the condition of rituals. And also, rituals link individuals to the places and the individuals each others. In this sense, then, the ritual, because of the combination of its elements, plays the role of a scheme that links individuals to place and, as a reflection, individuals to each other through the place. Rituals, as a flexible links, consequently, this ritual centered on place produce a flexible link, which is constituted only by adhesion and can be transversal to political identity or religious affiliation. We have worked on this framework on 8 cases that we have studied in the 3 cities of the research: Montreal, Geneva, and Turin. These 8 cases of urban inclusion ritual were chosen according to an approach which aimed to multiply the form which urban rituals can take, combining the diversity of promoting actors and the links with tradition. The 8 cases show different combination of this aspect and are also based on different logics in terms of form. These are the following types, and I think that it's more simple to show the image for
each ritual.
Yes. The first is the case of institutionalized spontaneous rituals. Students swim in the fountains in Piazza Castello, Turin, on the last day of the lesson, as you can see. Yes.
And go forward.
Yes. The second one is a spontaneous ritual without institutionalization, the Tam-Tam at Montreal. Is a weekly jam session in the summer period with artistic and bohemian atmosphere. Is a territorial ritual in Mont Royal, a hill in Montreal. Is a rite of passage of artistic competence, also a rite of passage of seasons, and the atmosphere is transgression. The next, please. This is a single ritual event supported and partly designed by local authorities. La Saga des Géants, the Saga of Giants in Geneva. Is a mobile theater event in the street of Geneva, and this is a territorial ritual. The next is a traditional ritual based on a reminder of history. L'Escalade in Geneva is a series of events with a parade, with customs. Is the ritual of history of independence of Geneva. In this day there is l'Escalade in Geneva. The next is a traditional rituals without a really historical reference. Is the San Giovanni Days in Turin. There are a series of events, a parade, a nightlight show, fireworks. The next is a ritual invented on the basis of a transformation of ritual landmarks. You are a part of history in Montréal. Vous faites partie de l'histoire. Sharing of arrival arrival story and personal migration story of the student, the pupil in the primary school, or yes.
End of secondary.
End. Okay. It consists in an organization and a realization of an exhibition with a treasure of object that have a symbolic value for the pupils. The next is a ritual invented by the authorities on the basis of the will of a community, and therefore without a traditional basis. We have not any image because is a ritual on the baby. It does not exist a kind of image. Is the Gala of the Newborns in Montreal, annual festival involving the population and the newborn of the district Saint-Michel, and is a form or a present of the associative environment and municipal authorities. The last one, traditional rituals with secondary historical reference, the Fête de Genève, Feast of Geneva, a series of touristic event, and the main element is fireworks. After the choice of ritual, we have identified more significant element of inclusion in this ritual: social inclusiveness, territorial inclusiveness, participation, legitimization, emotion, cyclicity. There are all elements that help us to recognize and analyze urban rituals linked to territory, to a place, a specific place in the city. The next step in the research, we have formulated a recommendation for the dissemination and support of urban rituals of territorial inclusion. But above all, we use this scheme in other analysis, for example, in a UNIC project. And it is exactly one of these cases of the project that I would like to present to you now, to leave the analytical part and enter the more empirical one. The case specific that I choose is the Iftar Street Mill in the San Salvario neighborhood in Turin. Iftar Street, as you know very well, is the Ramadan fast break-in at the sunset, celebrated with a meal. The Iftar Street in Turin is this meal celebrated by Muslim in a street of San Salvario, neighboring in Turin, in which all other inhabitants of any religion, even the non-religious one, are invited to participate. Yes. Okay. No, it's perfect. The event takes place in this street that you can see in red, Via Saluzzo, which is an ideal link between the Omar Mosque and the Catholic Church of St. Peter and Paul. The banquet is organized not only by the Muslim Association, but also with the participation of the retailers and the inhabitants of the neighborhood, who lend a hand to make the event possible. It's interesting because the street keep together two different religions, very different religions. The next, on this occasion, a very long table is set up on the street from the mosque to the Catholic Church, and it accommodates up to 2,000 of people. It's a considerable number of people. In this case, religion is not an element of identity affirmation, but an occasion for inclusion of differences, and it is considered by the inhabitant as a real common, able to create a belonging. Unfortunately, the picture is not so clear, but you can have also an idea of the people that participate to the event. Next. The vice president of the San Salvario Islamic Cultural Association, Walid Danawi, is firmly convinced that this is not a Muslim celebration but a neighborhood celebration open to all. When I interviewed him, I asked him about if the street in San Salvario, whether he had encountered any difficulties, and he replied that the initiative arose somewhat by chance, a challenge. This a quote of interviews. The great participation of the whole neighborhood was a surprise for us. We would never have imagined that there would be so many people willing to help us and share this moment with us. We are not the organizer. It's a feast for the whole neighborhoods where everyone brings something and everyone is welcome. To understand the Ifta Street in San Salvario, we need to consider the history and the background of a neighborhood. San Salvario is the symbol of the first wave of migration from Africa in Turin and generally in Italy in 80s and 90s. It is also the symbol of the deep tension that were created at the time between the residents and the migrants in the neighborhood and in the country. Despite the difficulties, San Salvario quickly became a place of differences and openness. Several actors have built up these conditions over time. Various associations and welcome groups, the neighborhood community center, which play a hub role, the religion institution, Muslim, Catholics, Protestant, Evangelical, Valdesians, Jews, and so on, the school, and some local political actors. In the image you can see what kind of melting religion exists in the neighborhood. There is two mosques, two important Catholic Christian church, but there is some other church, two evangelical Catholic church, synagogue, and a Valdesian temple, and many others that you can see in the image. This is very interesting to analyze and to understand the coexistence of differences. As you can see, in a very small area, there is a high concentration of religion places, as you can see in the map. The next, we can also look at this symbolic picture that takes the first Iftar Street in 2014, the representative of Israelite, Waldesian, Islamic, Catholic, and also the yes, is Italian National Partisan Association, all together in the place where the Iftar Street has take place. From this background of differences and openness, it was possible in 2014 to create this event, this ritual, the Iftar Street. In this sense, this kind of urban ritual is an example of urban ritual in which belonging and inclusion are linked to the place, a street in this case. The neighbor and the ritual are common to be taken care of all together, each one according to their own possibility. In this sense, urban rituals as a space to share and inhabitable place where it's possible to recognize each other. In this, we can found some specific aspect of ritual that we have studied and analyzed. Social inclusiveness, territorial inclusiveness, participation, legitimation, emotion, and cyclicity. We can also highlight a few elements of these urban rituals: place, memory, invention, performance, and signification. Place, in this ritual, an anonymous place, an homogeneous place, to quote Mircea Eliade, become a significant place where symbolic practice and emotional activities take place. Memory, because the sharing of public place can foster the production of collective memory. Invention. Despite its name, this ritual is an invention, an hybridization, a Muslim celebration in which non-Muslims participate, all with their differences. Performance. This ritual provides all elements: stage, time, place, audience, participant, and opportunity to perform. Eating together is a fantastic way to perform it together and to have emotion together. Signification. The ritual allows the participant to attribute a multiplities of meaning, thus enabling urban rituals to hold together the differences. Finally, urban ritual, in this case Iftar Street, are expressive and symbolic form that allow everyone to participate in a place of transparency and openness. And to conclude, I would like to show a slide, an image very recent, is a symbolic image, is a mural inaugurated at the beginning of June 21 in San Salvario. The title is Wall of Inclusion. It was painted by a Dutch artist, Karski and Beyond, in cooperation with young people, retired people, volunteers, and guests of the soup kitchen in the city, and became a symbol of the quarter, of the neighbor, and of inclusion in a neighbor that was a problematic neighbor, and in the moment is an example of inclusion of differences.